Welcome to Frequency. I'm Chuck Gose.
And I'm Jenni Field. Frequency is your go-to for real talk about comms, culture, and employee experience, beyond the buzzwords and straight to what matters. Now, I'm going to kick things off today with a couple of things on my list. The first of those things is meetings. And I wanted to have a conversation about them because I feel like conversations I've had recently with clients have been around the fact that they hate them. Generally, they have too many of them, and it just takes up too much of their time. And I've always heard this about meetings. This isn't new. It's always been a thing where I've always said meetings are part of work, so you have to manage your own boundaries. But I wondered if you'd come up against this, because it feels like with the people I was talking to about their leadership and leading, it was like top of the list of things that they shouldn't be doing. And I just wanted to get your take on that and how you feel about meetings.
It's well timed because I sent a friend today an Instagram sweatshirt that you can buy that said this meeting should have been a fist fight, is what it said. And I think it's more the recurring meetings, the ones that just linger on people's schedules. So people are just getting together with no real purpose other than it showed up on their calendar. And so therefore we should show up. But I also wonder if meetings needs a little bit of a PR
Yeah.
movement. Maybe like what if we called them like parties? You're
Yeah.
like, hey, I'm having a party at 3:00. I mean, that would be a lot more interesting than saying I have a meeting at 3 o'clock. So
I'm
maybe it
taking
just needs a new branding, some PR, like something like that.
I'm taking it. Every time we ever have to have a meeting now, it's just going to be a party. Like that's
But
it. Done.
how much better does that sound?
So much better.
So much better.
So much better. So much better. The other thing I wanted to mention, just because it's filled my cup this week, was my Leaders Reboot event that I hosted in London, which is an event I run a couple of times a year. I'm only doing it once next year, but it's where I bring together about 8 individuals who want to work on their credibility and leadership. And I had 3 people with me this week, and it was just lovely. It was a really nice day of talking about leadership styles, influence, impact, the challenges of leading a team, starting a new team, evolving a team, restructuring, all of those things. And it was just so lovely to be in a room with people face to face. And I think in a world where so much is still online, sometimes it's easy to forget the benefit of just being with people in a room. And it was just lovely. And I know you've been out and about and with people in rooms this week. You were somewhere else earlier
That
on in the
sounds
week.
very, very salacious out and about with people in rooms. I was down in Charlotte. Work Vivo and Ecology partnered together on a dinner in Charlotte, North Carolina, to bring comms leaders together in the area, and that is a fill the cup moment
Yeah.
for me, and that's something I've experienced whether it was in Indianapolis, where I live, where I pulled communicators together, or it's at various events that we do, and I would say like not like top tier cities. I mean, it's not New York or LA or Chicago. We've talked about this on the podcast before, but being in a room of like-minded people who are about the same kind of life, professionally speaking, but then also a mixture of people. Some people I know in there really well, some I knew of, and some were complete strangers. And it's really cool when you leave an event where the restaurant is not so subtly trying to kick you out because you won't stop talking and people won't stop sharing, which is a good sign. And so that's something I know that we want to build on is like, how do we get creative in ways to bring the comms community together?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Good. Love that. So you've got articles for us this week. What are you talking about?
Yeah, so we are going to be talking about how leaders are trying to separate AI noise from real behavior, and the data is finally getting specific. OpenAI's new usage report maps what people actually do with ChatGPT at work, and BCG's comms team is quantifying where GenAI returns show up in the function. Also, a recent BBC piece offers a culture gulp check that is perfect for how we wrap up. Now, let's start with the work pattern people are already living. A new buzzword for us here, Jenni: microshifting. So, in Forbes piece frames microshifting as short, flexible work blocks that you fit around life and energy, not a single 8 or 9 hour slab of time. It is less about location and more about control. The article argues that trust plus clear outcomes beats presence tracking. The risk is fragmentation if teams do not have shared windows for availability and simple norms for response times. So, Jenni, with this new buzzword of microshifting to our frequency lexicon, where do you see this often break down first? Is it with the goals of how teams are getting together? Is it around the availability of knowing when people are in their micro shift or not in their micro shift? Is it trust with the managers leading those teams, or is it something else?
I found this really interesting. I love a new buzzword, microshifting, because I feel like I've been doing this for years, where you're just blending everything together. But we have talked before about whether people are blenders or splitters in terms of their time. And I think so much of this comes down to your personality, your communication, and your leadership in terms of that team that you're leading. Because if you're not having conversations about where are you this week, and like what have you got going on, or you're not blocking time out in your diary if you have got a personal appointment to go to, then it does make it very difficult, I think, to manage that availability. So that piece for me and my personality would be where it would break down first, would be I don't know whether you can reply to this is urgent, I need to get hold of you. And that links into trust and other things like that. So I think there is that communication piece just becomes so much more important. But that is true with hybrid work anyway. Like you have to communicate more in a hybrid or remote environment. So I don't think that's necessarily different. I think if we're going to move into microshifting, then it just means we have to communicate even more. What I did find interesting in this article was the advice to leaders about what they should be doing in order to succeed at this. And one of the things was ensuring fairness across roles. Now, I just think that's really hard to do. I feel like fairness is such a big word, and also it's very subjective. And I think that that's really hard. I think if you're saying make it fair in terms of everybody can micro shift, then that's cool. But I think we've got to be careful about what we're saying around fairness when people have lots of different responsibilities outside of work, lots of different challenges of different times to juggle and things like that. So I think there's lots of opportunity for it to break down. And the solution for that is just more communication, very clear expectation management to enable this to work properly.
There was a study that I remember reading, I think it was from Microsoft, that talked about, and this bleeds well and great into your meetings conversation to kick things off, that we tend to have these set meetings on our calendars when people are actually most creative. And we're not creative in meetings typically. And so we're actually robbing ourselves of that time by having those set schedules in place. But in some of this research, though, they also talked about how, in this return to office, return to work, butts in seats, 9 to 5, 5 days a week stuff that some companies are doing, there are some studies around that knowledge workers report 39% higher productivity and 64% greater ability to focus when they have schedule flexibility. A lack of flexibility increases their attention to job hunt 3x. So,
Yeah.
people, if you're not giving your people flexibility, there's a good chance they're looking for something else out there. Now, when it comes to that area of talking about the shared windows of time, I thought this was interesting. Something that Dropbox has what they call their non-linear workday,
Nice.
which sets up core collaboration hours so that there are still times where teams have to overlap. So you can't just say, I'm not a morning person, I'm going to come in at noon, but someone else is like, I'm a morning person, so I'm going to stop working at noon. No, that doesn't work. There's these core collaboration hours where people do have to be online. So I think that does help some of those teams stay aligned if you are giving some flexibility. And then with these breaks, I think your point around talking about blending versus splitting is really important because there's also studies out there that say that these, if you split it, well-being improves, also improved
Mm,
performance, especially after you've had like a really big run at something. Being able to truly separate and split out and do something else or take a break or
yeah.
whatever, huge, huge out
Yeah.
there.
And I think this for me is the start of that conversation about knowledge workers and just how different that is. And this is ultimately what this is saying is that you can't work in the same way that you would work in a manufacturing line in an office
Mm,
because you do need the breaks, you need the space to think. You know, I was talking about this at Leaders Reboot, you've got to build in time for walks and fresh air and that space to not have any screen time and just that ability to think. It might be going to the gym, it might be going out, with a friend, but just something that's going to change what your brain is doing to help your brain solve some of those challenges is so important. And we don't talk about that enough. But I think this micro breaks that and this is that blending everything so that you're doing it all not at the same time, but you're blending different tasks and different things you need to do, whether they're work or home, in amongst the sort of normal day. And I do think that's where we will end up. I also find it odd that people are still working in a way where it's not okay to just go and pop to the dentist or go and drop your car in for its MOT or whatever you might need to do. It kind of blows my mind that that isn't something that people are doing because it's a way that I've worked before I was a consultant, and I've had that flexibility for a long time and have clearly taken it for granted.
Well, I think ultimately that's what people want. Even in this return to office
Yeah.
mandates that are happening, they just want to know that they have some flexibility, that they
Yeah.
are maintaining some autonomy, some control in it, knowing
100%.
that it may not always be fair in all cases, but at least there's an attempt
Yes,
to
an
be fair.
attempt was made, as they say.
Yes, absolutely. Let's move along now to OpenAI released a new usage report that is concrete about what workers do in the first 90 days of using ChatGPT. Four jobs dominate this research: writing, research, programming, and analysis. The pattern is more augmentation, not so much automation in the first 90 days. Adoption is broad and growing with a large weekly user counts and a steady tilt toward practical guidance and information seeking. In my opinion, this gives IC teams a clear enablement brief. You can do some standard prompts, review checklists, feedback loop tied to time saved by task family, like really come up with some good structures in how the teams are using, whether it is OpenAI or Claude or Copilot, whatever it might be. So I'm curious for you, Jenni, we've obviously been working long before AI became a thing. We have now integrated it into what we do in our jobs. Where have you really embraced AI and added it to your work, and where have you might have resisted a little bit?
So it's definitely part of my everyday, and it's part of my everyday for things like transcripts, or using an AI companion on Zoom to kind of capture conversations. I was in fact playing with that today because I think that's quite new, that AI companion on Zoom. And I was having a conversation with Alia, who's my assistant, and we were just having our normal weekly catch up. And as we were talking, I asked the AI companion to just summarize what we'd said around a specific project, and it just documented the whole thing. So we had all of the timeline and everything in live time, which I just thought was really cool. So we're using it in that way. I'm using it to do analysis for client work. So if we've got survey results or focus groups or anything like that, I'm using it to help with that analysis and draw out key themes. I use it as my second brain. So I'll use it to go backwards and forwards on ideas and thinking and what about this and can we reshape that and that doesn't quite work. And I use it to draft a lot of my blog content for our website because it'll use source material that's mine. So it'll use my books, other blog content, research papers I've written, all of those things to help create that. So I use it a lot from a content creation, data analysis, and thinking partner. I would say they're the three things. I don't use it for image creation and creative work, and I've probably resisted that partly because you hate that. And you've talked quite a lot on here about AI images, but also my husband works in the creative industry. He works in the video game industry, and he's a photographer, and he's trained in sort of art and stuff. And I can understand that craft and the importance of that. And I feel like that would not be okay. And where I have tried to use it to create things, I've ended up going to him and saying, please can you help me make this look better? Because it's not been quite right. So I've definitely shied away from that creative side of it. It's much more analytical, writing, content, that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
How about you?
it's interesting. We're using it in very different ways,
Oh,
which I think is really great because I really don't use it for writing. In fact, I did a LinkedIn post where a friend pointed out to me I had a typo in it. And he's like, I guess this means you're not using AI to write these things. I'm like, I'm not. Thanks for being my editor. on there because I'm horrible at typos. So I don't use it a lot for that, but I am starting to using it more on the creation side of images and video, more from an exploratory standpoint. So this is where I like to talk to people who are like, well, I don't want AI to write for me. I'm like, well, don't. It'll only do that if you ask it
Yeah.
to. Whereas like I was on a panel, which I don't like doing panels, so I made it a little bit different where I was talking about the role that game theory plays in company culture. So I made all the slides look like a 16-bit video game, and I made all the panelists look like 16-bit video game characters. I don't have those kind of design skills. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't even know where to begin to do those things. But using Nano Banana, Google's tool, with a couple prompt variations, I was like, they looked really cool. Like it looked really good. Like I created that. I did that. Before I would have had to have gone to a designer and gone back and forth, which I know is part of the design process, but this was just very self-contained. Like I can now do this. I also published a recent LinkedIn post because I do the Lights Camera Communicate series with Lucy Hub. And in that, they have some AI tools embedded into their software, which includes things like you need help writing a script, you need to create shot lists for a video that you want to do. Well, I put all the shot lists in separately into Sora, which is OpenAI's tool, and VO3, Google's tool, Gemini, and gave them the same prompts and then stitched the videos together so you could see how they interpreted those prompts somewhat very similarly and sometimes wildly differently. So I think it's really a chance to explore and doing things that you couldn't normally do. So
Yeah.
when I spoke at Brightside in Omaha, I did a bunch of like videos, but I wanted to begin with like a flyover of Omaha. I don't have a drone. I can't rent some equipment to do that, but I think I used VO3 for that. It created like a flyover of Omaha. So that's why I like this word, this augmentation. It's building on what I'm doing, not replacing. What I want to get better at, and maybe this is an area that I would say I haven't necessarily resisted, I just haven't taken the time to do it, is more on the automation
Mm-hmm.
side of having, whether it's OpenAI or Claude, monitor my system and actually prompt me with things like, hey, this is due, this needs to be done. I'm doing some of those kind of things. Work email slips through the cracks sometimes, you forget, like, and I want there to be this system that's like a catch for me. It's like the police kind of keeping an eye on what I'm doing and be like, you forgot this, or this needs to be done, or this deadline, is this in place? That's the kind of stuff I want to see happen.
Yeah. I don't think I would trust it enough. Like knowing I would feel like it will miss
Well, you have an
something.
assistant. I don't
Oh,
have an
exactly.
assistant.
Yes, I also have that. Yeah. So, and I have no plans to replace her with any sort of AI at all. And we use Monday.com, and we've not automated that, but we've found a plug-in to Outlook. So when we're emailing clients, we can automatically update Monday through doing that. So we've made our system smarter and quicker, which has made it just easier to get work done. And I think when you're juggling, like we're juggling sort of, 10 to 15 clients at any one time, there's a lot going on. So I think where you can automate or speed up some of those processes by using the technology to help, that's where it's most helpful to me. Whereas I can see for you with that creative work that you do and all the speaking and the panels, makes so much sense to really bring that to life with what's in your head rather than
Mhm.
having to try and outsource that. I can completely see that.
We're going to move along now to a BCG. Their latest report says comms is near the top of the AI ready heap. Roughly a third of the time can be reclaimed today by wiring GenAI into the task level work, and that climbs towards around 47% as teams reshape processes with agentic workflows. There's a lot of buzzwords in there, Jenny. Cost impact also has a play here. They're average around 20 to 28% with process changes because so much of the function is repetitive. So this is a focus here. How do you get rid of the repetitive work with data driven? And it's obviously very content intensive. So in other words, this isn't robots taking over your newsletter. It's more this human supervised systems drafting, routing, and measuring all at scale while people move up the value chain and the quote unquote robots are doing the work. They also say that more than 80% of the typical comms role is in the sweet spot for augmentation or supervised autonomy. I'm going to use that. I'm going to try to use that words in my vernacular more and more. With only a little around 8% is purely human dominant, and less than 9% is fully automatable. So 80% they're saying is in this work that we can do every day, and then there's a little stuff on the periphery. Internal comms, digital media, ops, planning, analytics are the ripest zones, while they're saying public affairs and exec comms need more human judgment. Also, framing is this: use the freed up capacity to raise quality and personalization, not just to cut things. They're saying this is a blueprint for IC, HR, and employee experience leaders that you can act on now and break down work into task families, govern these high volume patterns. Where are you doing most of this work? And then share a scorecard, things that might focus on turnaround time, quality, stakeholder satisfaction, so that leadership can see the gains without thinking this is just a factory churning out parts all the time. I'm curious from your standpoint, Jenni, how do you feel about this 80% number saying that that's really like 80% of the work can be AI influenced um, for that augmentation or the supervised autonomy? What's your reaction to that?
I love that you kind of sat back then as well, like, ooh. Um, so I think part of this is a byproduct of what people think comms is. And I think that's probably part of the challenge is I think people see the output and think, oh, this is just content, or this is just a comms plan, or this is just a set of slides, or all the tactical stuff that I think people see. It's interesting that they talk about exec comms, public affairs, that has more human judgment. I mean, I'd argue that internal comms also has human judgment, given that organizations are people, and without them there is no organization. So I think there is a bit of a what are you interpreting as the tasks that a comms function is doing. I also don't wholly disagree with it. I think there are a lot of comms teams who are creating content and comms plans and a lot of tactical stuff that can be done with the support of AI. We've just talked about how we're using it. If I think about if I worked in house today and some of the fractional roles I do, then I'm getting the transcripts from the meetings, I'm getting the updates from those. How are we using it to speed things along and get things done? But it's not going to replace the relationships and the conversations that you need to have with people to help your understanding. And I think that's probably the difference. When I look at people who are not in comms roles, who are picking up comms work, because it's, quote unquote easy and I just need to write a comms plan and just get this done, they lack any sort of judgment or experience to know what's missing or what the nuances are or how that will be interpreted or what that means. And all of that, I think we're just not quite there yet. But I think it's a real wake up call if you're just focused on the tactics. And we've talked about this before, that the tactical stuff is going to go, like that is going to shift into different places, but it means that we've got to make sure that that human judgment is there, and also that quality and personalization piece. I love that it talks about the fact that it's not just a case of, oh great, 80% of this role can be done by a robot, we can just sack everybody. I quite like that they're not promoting that, and they're saying actually it frees up the time to do deeper work, better work, and the work that's really needed to improve the communication experience with whichever stakeholder you're engaging with.
Yeah, my first reaction was that 80% figure seemed really high. But then I think this is then a challenge to the profession is to think,
Yeah.
okay, where can I use AI to help me? Where should I use it? Because I think there's a lot of tasks, and I've had this conversation with communicators where there's a lot of things that they enjoy doing that probably
Yeah.
AI should be doing because there's not the value that the AI would be a lot quicker at it, which to your point gives you more time to, in theory, do more personalization, do deeper work. But I don't know if that's what some people want to do,
No,
is
and
that work.
I think it's easier to stay in your comfort zone. And I have this conversation a lot with people that want to move up into that sort of head of role or director role. And they're like, but I'm stuck in the weeds. And I'm like, but you're allowing yourself to be stuck in the weeds. And there's a framework that I use with people, which was shared to me by my coach, Chris Ducker, where he talks about the three buckets of stuff. What are the things that you can't do? What are the things that you shouldn't be doing? And what are the things that you hate doing? And I love that framework, and I use it all the time with people that I coach or in any workshops that I run, because there'll be a load of stuff that you shouldn't be doing, but you're doing because it's easy and it's quicker for you to just do it rather than training someone else or delegating it. And
Mhm.
if you're stuck in there, this is where this is going to really start to unravel, because you've got to come up and out of that and either delegate it to a person or delegate it to technology that's going to take that
Right.
heavy thing away.
Yeah, I think it's just more of an opportunity to be for in your role, if you're not exploring, testing, using AI, not to say you're falling behind, but I think you could be doing a lot more
Yeah,
with
100.
with with the work you're doing. We're gonna wrap this up, Jenny, with 2 words you need to help you push back at work. Saying no at work is hard, which is why this BBC piece focuses on a tiny language tweak with a big payoff. They're suggesting you swap I can't for I don't. Argument here is I can't invites negotiation, while I don't sets a clear boundary tied to values. Like I don't take meetings after 5 on Wednesdays because I have to pick up my kids, for example. Lorraine Pascal's story shows how unchecked ambition and perfectionism can slide into burnout. And clinicians remind us that the real warning trio is exhaustion, detachment, and reduced performance. If you're drifting that way, your capacity has changed and your goals should too. The move is to normalize boundaries and make them operational, give people permission to set availability windows, like we talked about before, coach managers to respect those windows, and acknowledge life stage realities without any stigma. Also, sometimes a simple, quick boss conversation unlocks small but meaningful adjustments because preventing burnout helps everyone. The aim here with this piece is that it is not about fewer hours for the sake of it. It's about sustainable performance that people can live with and leaders can count on. Previous episodes, Jenny, we've talked a lot about boundaries and boundary setting. How do you feel about saying I don't instead of I can't? And what do you say I don't to?
So I love this, and I actually referred to it in a conversation the other day. And it also links to something I've always said, which is you have to be clear with people whether this is a conversation, a discussion, or if a decision's been made. Because if you're not clear about that, people are going to think they have an opinion and that you want to hear it and they can discuss it with you. So I'm a big believer in this. The framing of the example where they've said to switch from, I don't take meetings after 5 because I have to pick up my kids. As someone who doesn't have children, some of those don't conversations is quite challenging, because it's like if you don't have children to go and pick up, there's no real reason why you can't possibly keep working. And I think that any one of my friends doesn't have children will say exactly the same. There's like, it's almost like it's not been seen as acceptable that you might have other things to do that you want to do, and therefore you stop working. So I think for me, it is a case of swapping that out. I don't have meetings after 5 on a Wednesday. I don't think you need to say because of anything. I think you
Mhm.
can just say, I don't do that. I don't think you need to quantify it. In my world, I don't have client facing meetings on Mondays and Fridays. I don't have meetings before 10 a.m. and really after 4 p.m. Now, these are parameters. They are parameters for me. They are the ideal. There are always exceptions to that. I have clients in Australia, so I have to talk to them early. I have clients in the US, I have to talk to them late. Sometimes I do have client stuff on a Friday. It doesn't matter, but they're my general rules for how we structure time and structure what we're doing, which hugely works for us in terms of my assistant Alia, I've talked about her. She has to get her kids to school. She doesn't start till 9:30. So it gives us the morning time to get ourselves straight and make sure that we're not rushing into meetings in a way. And that's what's quite important to me. So big fan of this. What about you?
Well, as you were saying that, you actually don't have any I don'ts. Yours is more like I don't want to, but
But it's my
you might
choice.
have.
I don't.
Right.
Do you know what? I would never have a firm. I don't do this, because I always think there will always be there will always be an exception to that that's going to need to come in. So I don't like really fixed boundaries and the language around things like I have no work Friday, Because then if you do have to work, you beat yourself up for the fact that you've broken your own rule, and then that becomes an issue for you mentally. So I don't love the strictness of that, but I like the this is my base level and I'm happy to take exceptions based on my judgment and values.
So when I was thinking about this, like I don't take red eye flights for work. I don't do it.
Yeah.
I've learned I am absolute garbage the next day, and that's not good for me. So personal reasons, I can make those choices. Work reasons, do not take red eyes. Also, do not eat ribs at places that are not a rib place. I do not eat steak at places that are not a steak place. There's just a quality standard that's there. But bringing it back to the work environment, I think there's a bit of a risk with the I don't, because there's something very final potentially about it. You might actually miss out on yours, like I don't want to but type thing. Like you might tell somebody, hey, I don't do that at work. What about a year later,
Yeah.
there's a new opportunity and someone's like, oh, Jenni doesn't want to do that. Well,
Yeah.
what if some things have changed? So I think I understand, we've talked about the importance of boundaries. I think I don't can be very healthy, but in that healthy, you could also be recognizing you might missing out on
Yeah.
some opportunities, which just might be that exchange of having that boundary in place.
Yeah. I think in the context and the example given, so coming back to that example of I don't do meetings after 5 because I have to pick up my kids. I think where you've got a requirement, I think it makes complete sense to use I don't. And I think it is contextual. Like there is a reason there that means that. Whereas if you said I can't, then they might say that, oh, could you just this once? Could you organize someone
Right.
else to pick them up? Like it does open that door for that negotiation. So I think where you have a very specific need, like if I was training for something, like I don't do meetings on Mondays and Wednesdays after 5 because I have to train, like that I think is completely fair. But I think the context with which you use don't is important, and I think that's probably the bit to take away.
Yeah, I think there is that also the danger and the risk with I can't, to your point, that does offer up a potential negotiation where you're really saying is I don't,
Yes.
but your words coming out are I
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
I can't. Yeah. Well, Jenni, that wraps up the articles for this week. What are you freaking out about?
So I'm freaking out about, and it's kind of a good freak out actually. Oh, Christmas planning is underway in my world, and I know it's October, but Christmas shopping starts for me at the end of October. We've just started talking about dates for Christmas get-togethers because I have lots of different family Christmas days because my husband and I both have parents who are divorced and remarried, so we have sort of 4 Christmases. So there's a lot of logistics to sort out, but I was having a real moment this week of feeling quite Christmassy and getting quite excited about having a few weeks off work, making sticky toffee pudding, buying all the presents and all the joy and the Christmas parties and all of that. So I'm embracing Christmas, and I know it's October, so please don't shoot me down.
Can I ask a very ignorant question?
Of course.
Do you I don't know that I've ever thought about this. I guess I could have Googled this, but it just came into my head. Do you do Halloween?
Yes, but nowhere near like you guys do Halloween,
Okay.
which makes me
Okay.
sad because I
Yeah.
love Halloween. It's like one of my favorite holidays, if you can call it that. But I'm away for Halloween, which is slightly annoying because I just love it. And I have a t-shirt with witches all over it and I'm a huge fan, but we just don't do it justice like you guys do.
Okay. Yeah, I am a big Halloween fan, not for the costumes, the candy, the blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. It's like the one time a year that a neighborhood actually people get out and talk to one another, and
Yeah.
that'll be coming up after this episode comes out. Obviously, here in the U.S., we've got Halloween, which is pretty big. Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
huge, and then so we still have a little bit of milestones here, holiday milestones to get through
Is
on our
Thanksgiving
side of the
bigger?
pond.
Is Thanksgiving for you in your, because I think it's different for different people that I've spoken to. Is Thanksgiving bigger than Christmas for you?
I think that is. I'm going to say that's very personal, not because I won't answer the question, but it kind of depends on the person,
Yeah.
honestly, and sometimes what their family situations are and all of those things. So I know, like, for my mom, has always much more enjoyed Thanksgiving than Christmas. Obviously, as kids, you're like, can we just get past Thanksgiving to
Yeah.
get to Christmas? That is a speed bump on the way to the presents. I was thinking today as I was on a flight about what my freak out was, and I realized I have a lot. And I'm gonna get into one, but one short here. I've only driven Acuras for like 20 years. And I just found out the Acura that I drive, they're not gonna make anymore. So I'm like, great, next car, what am I gonna get? Because I don't drive SUVs, I don't drive trucks, I drive cars, I like Acuras. And then might only have one. So I'm like, thank you, Acura. Also heard this saying that someone said that whatever billionaires want, we get, and then what billionaires don't want, we don't get. And I've been thinking about that in the context of like the economy here in the US. Like if the people that have the money and the strings, they will create things for us, whether we just think we then want it because it was created for us. But if there's things that we want, like I don't know, universal health care, billionaires don't want it. So we're not gonna have it. So those are two like mild freakouts. My more positive freak out though, as I landed,
Love that you've got three
I
today.
told you I was freaking out a little bit. I opened up my Delta app. I'm Delta loyal. I fly frequently. I have taken one non-Delta flight this year out of need to get back for a direct flight, and I saw that I'm gonna hit Diamond Medallion again, which is like top tier Delta status. It actually does mean something. It doesn't mean everything because I sat cramped in a normal seat on the flight this morning before we recorded this. So it's not everything. That's the dangers of flying through Atlanta on Delta. Everybody's got status. But oh, Jenni, it's so great having that. You board early, you get first class upgrades when they're available. Like, I hit it last year and I thought I'd never hit it again. And I did it. And you know how I
How
did
long
it?
do you get?
Loyalty
How long do you get to keep it for? How long
for a
do you claim?
year.
So for a year. Oh, nice.
For a
Okay.
year. I love it so much, Jenni, that I've got my card right here.
Oh,
My-
you're so
my-
cute. I love that.
yeah.
I just when we got back from Nashville, I hit silver status with British Airways again, which is lovely because I can fast track through security, I can use the lounge, and I'm very loyal to British Airways. Some people would say that's silly, but I am. To your point, it's I only ever travel with them. So when I got silver, I was a bit like, yay, I can get back in the lounge to work and I can fast track through security.
But it's like that's what's so interesting to me that for some people, and this is all part of David Rock's scarf model. So the S in scarf is status. Status doesn't matter to some people. Like they'll fly if they have 30 flights, they would fly 30 different airlines for whatever
Yeah.
their schedule works best, whatever the deal is, whatever. But if you fly a lot and you want lounge access, I mean, that's why like I am now lifetime at Hilton. I'm now trying to earn it at Marriott. Like those things matter. Like you get used to that environment. So I'm like 99.9% sure that I'm gonna hit Diamond Medallion
I'm
again.
excited for you.
And then I can rest, and then the march begins
Yeah.
in 2026.
I love it. I love it.
Well, thank you all for joining us this week. All of the articles that have inspired this conversation are in the show notes, and do not forget to rate and review after you've listened. Subscribe so you don't miss another episode, and pass this along to someone you think would enjoy listening or watching, because you can also find Frequency on YouTube. Thank you to Poet Ali for contributing music to the show. We're back every Monday with more news, insights, and opinions about everything comms and leadership in workplaces today. Keep tuning in and turning up.